Hey, this is Kyle is Wonderful here with the flagship weekly podcast, the Wonderful Wrestling Podcast for July 22nd, 2022. Been a pretty good week. We had the start of G1. We've had 3 G1 events. Those were decent, a little underwhelming overall, but at least the preliminary tags were a little interesting, even if some of the G1 matches weren't. We had a few good matches, though. We'll look at those. What we do here on the flagship weekly podcast is go through everything that I've reviewed. Individually. So one of the things I'm not only been a wrestling fan since 1990, but I've been a wrestling podcast connoisseur basically since the beginning. So shout out to my biggest influence, SWF, the Smart Wrestling Podcast with Joe Negron and Larry and Executive Moonbeam. So they've been the longest running weekly podcast in wrestling in history. They're on almost 900 weeks in a row. So shout out to them. It's like 850, something like that. I helped. They've always been very good. They've been no ads and stuff like that. They've never made it big time. But that's because they don't want to sell out to anybody and all that kind of stuff. Very respectable people. Joe Negron's one of the smartest wrestling minds I've ever heard, and he's never actually been involved in the business other than maybe this Jeff Katz project where Kenny Omega broke a chandelier of all things. Go find that story from Joe Negron because it's hilarious. But never really, I think Joe Negron's so knowledgeable in this business that he should be in creative on WWE, AEW, or anybody. But yeah, that's definitely my inspiration. And I was even a silent backer. I was trying to give them some money to stay afloat and stuff like that throughout the years. So I guess I'm not a silent backer anymore, but so shout out to them. One of the things I wanted to do is have they have a lot of other stuff too, Smart Wrestling Fan. But one of the things is that it's not necessarily ever a live show. It's purely recorded podcast where that means you do get a lot better quality than you'll find here on my live streams. But what I wanted to do is I wanted something where it's live reviews as close to as possible after the live event as possible. Like I said, sometimes, like for instance, I can't get Rampage out until maybe a couple hours after Rampage ends. That's because I'm trying to do Smackdown right after it's live, but I don't even get to do that live because I have to watch NXT NXT Level Up right after SmackDown. So then I record those two shows. One of the other things I want to always do is never watch too many. That's part of my thing is maybe it is because I have a terrible memory, but I want to be fresh. I want you to get my instant reaction when I finish watching a show, which my reactions could change after an hour or even a half hour after I maybe process it and think, oh yeah, maybe now that makes sense. And then especially if I listen to a couple podcasts and then I'm like, oh yeah, now I see that, or maybe I missed something. So that's why I still listen to podcasts. I like to have all kinds of different points of view. One thing that's beautiful about professional wrestling is everything's in the eye of the beholder. I might see a match that I would call the greatest of all time, and you might call it a snore fest because you don't like technical grappling, catch as catch can style. You kind of want more of a spot fest and stuff like that. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's all individually what you like. But what I like to do because of that is have every single review that I do individually marked. So you can find on my YouTube page here, Kyle is Wonderful, that everything is marked either WWE, AEW, stuff like that. But then even like AEW, there's 4 separate reviews every single week. So one for Elevation, one for Dark, one for Dynamite, and one for Rampage. So I just want to keep doing it like this so that any particular time you want to come on after you just watched the live show, I should be here live. And then even if it's not live, you could probably find it within not too long. So even with I'm doing live right after G1 ends, New Japan shows, even after G1, I'll still be doing it. I've been doing it since Dominion now. So I just started this out. I've been reviewing shows almost 2 months now, every single day. I haven't burnt out. I find it really fun. I've never been the type that cares about a ton of money. I just need a roof over my head and some food to eat and stuff like that. Maybe a new shirt here and there, but I haven't bought a new wrestling t-shirt in probably 6 or 7 years and stuff like that. I already have everything I need. Why would I need new clothes? Why would I need new shoes until they fall apart kind of deal? So in the meantime, I am working like a daytime job, but I am trying to cover this full time as well. So I've been putting in more than 40 hours a week doing this now. you might see all the reviews up here, and they're pretty lengthy and stuff like that. I try to be pretty thorough in each review. I don't, other than WWE main event where it's only 2 matches and no storylines, every single one of my reviews is going to be over 15 minutes. Um, some of the hour shows I can only drag it out for 2025, and then the 2 hour shows and Raw are usually about an hour. Then a pay-per-view might even get up to 2 hours if there's a lot to talk about. So um that's why I want to continue doing this weekly podcast where we can kind of take a breather, look back to what happened. We'll kind of figure out my personal, again, everything is different with everybody. Everybody looks for something different in wrestling. And so my particular top 5 for matches you have to make sure you watch. And I can only do the top 5 out of promotions I actually watch. I would love to add Stardom, Tokyo Joshi Pro, Noah, and All Japan to my lineup. That in a dream world, I could start making some money. I could quit my day job, and then I could record all reviews for all promotions, and that would be my dream. I'm a hard worker. I like to watch a lot of wrestling anyway, so that's kind of where I started doing this. There's a lot of things I've discovered in different podcasts that I don't particularly like, so that's why you won't be hearing me do different things like that. When I do my reviews, I like to make them as much spoiler free as I can. So most podcasts will start let's just say, for instance, Raw just finished and Brock Lesnar just won the title or something. This is a hypothetical situation, so this isn't what happened, but most podcasts would come right on as soon as they start and said, "Wow, that was a great ending on Raw. Did you see Brock Lesnar win the title?" But no, maybe some people want to listen to the reviews because they don't have time to watch the show, and you can kind of I can take them on the same journey. So basically what my reviews are taking you on my inner thoughts, my journey throughout me watching the shows with the perspective of having 30 years of watching. I've gone back and probably watched the 10 years before that, going back to 1980. So I have a pretty good knowledge there. And then up to this point in time. So it's basically my life thoughts. I take thorough notes while I'm watching. I'm getting better and better at watching and taking notes at the same time. Maybe I should transfer over to some kind of talk. I mean, it's 2022, so why am I even typing? I should have some kind of voice activated and just talk. But then again, then I'd have to listen to the TV over my own voice as opposed and my inner thoughts at the same time. So maybe that would be a little too much. Maybe I'll stick with what I'm doing right now. It's working out fine for me. But what I'm also doing is putting a lot of time into previews before I get to the shows, before I watch the show. So like for instance, before I started this weekly podcast right now that I'm doing, I did because Friday is one of my big days, and then I've immediately, or not immediately, but probably once I finish the Rampage review, I'll have an hour or two before G1 starts. I forgot to look what time it starts today, so I'll have to do that later, but I'm just going to be working straight through, and that's what I was kind of talking about, where I've kind of transitioned into a second full-time job now where I'm not even getting paid a dime. It costs me money to pay for all the wrestling that I watch. But anyway, I'm still enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun. It doesn't feel like work to me, and the dream would be to eventually, like I said, start making money on this, quit my daytime job, and add Stardom, Tokyo Joshi Pro, All Japan, and Noah to my lineup as well. So that would be the dream right there. I love everything, how interconnected and all the stories between wrestling are. I don't even really have a favorite promotion. I'm just a fan of wrestling in general. I've come to the point in time in my life where I don't even really care who wins matches anymore, as long as you don't lose in like 1 minute. Like I got really upset the other week on SmackDown where I ended up getting pretty good ratings for it too. But you'll never see me faking being mad and stuff like that. But I was legitimately mad that Ronda Rousey came out limping on one leg severely, couldn't put any weight on her leg, didn't have her gear on, presumably didn't have time to warm up or stretch or anything. Natty's out there, Natalia, inner gear, ready to fight, and then Natalia doesn't get one bit of offense into a one-legged Ronda Rousey and loses in minutes. That's when I have a problem, when it's being a little too ridiculous and stuff like that. I also have problems when stuff that happens that doesn't make sense storyline wise, but I am also willing to give things a shot. I'll try to talk things out, like I said, within these reviews of what I think maybe the stories are interpreting, but then I'll always preface it by saying, like, we'll just have to wait and see how this turns out. Maybe I think this will happen or that could happen. These are our 3 options, that kind of deal. Like when we got the NXT, when Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez won the tag titles a couple weeks ago, and then Roxanne said that she wanted to go for the cash her breakout tournament contract to fight Mandy Rose for the NXT Women's title. I said I'm pretty sure that we're gonna get Cora Jade turning heel next week, because it is justified that she just won the title in the tag titles, and about 15 minutes later, instead of having a night of at least 24 hours of celebration, or one night of celebrating as a team, Roxanne puts the takes now their old news. We've already moved on to, oh yeah, Roxanne Perez is now going to fight next week Mandy Rose for the title, putting the tag team titles at old news. So some people are saying, oh, it's ridiculous that Court Jade turned heel on Roxanne, but they did like give you a reason why, and you could see it. But what I also said is I think that's probably going to happen, but here's our three options, and then I spelled it out. Like, nobody is going to turn heel, and Roxanne actually beats Mandy Rose, and they become like what is it, Roxy 2 belts. So then that was one option. One of the other options was Mandy Rose wins, maybe through cheating. And then the third option was Mandy Rose wins because of Cora Jade. And that's the option that it was. But I did kind of say, oh, I think that is what it's going to happen. They've kind of set it up for that very reason. So that's kind of, if you're new to this channel, how I do my reviews. And so it is a lot of recap as well. But I do like to use the word review. That's kind of what people think of when they think of like the word recap doesn't really convey my entire like videos. Yes, I'm doing a recap, but you're getting, I go blow for blow and move for move, and I try to do word for word promos and all this the best I can, especially in the live shows. I don't necessarily rewind a lot. I'm trying to do it in real time so I can get on as soon as possible. Every now and then I'll do if it was something epic or whatnot. But anyway, it's just really cool how everything's been working out. So I kind of lost what I was saying there, but I've been really excited to do this, and I hope that we can continue to grow around here. We did get 1K, I think it's 1.1K views on the last WWE pay-per-view on Money in the Bank, so we're definitely doing something good around here. And I just let me know if there's anything I could do to improve these. Like I said, I try to do a preview as much as I can. Just for instance, for the Rampage preview for tonight, it will be Jay Lethal and Fallen Angel. I made sure to go find what their singles record was against each other. Like in any company, anytime Christopher Daniels leads the single match series, 4 wins to 3. Then I found like when they last fought, when they first fought, what's their records in AEW and stuff like that. So I'd like to quickly do that. Like, so for instance, I would get to, oh, time for the main event. It's going to be Jay Lethal versus Christopher Daniels. And then I'll read off my preview and then once I finish reading off my preview, which I would have made earlier in the day before the match or before I even started watching the show, then I'll be like, because this one, for instance, finishes with me saying the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels has a record of 30-22, and he's 6-10 in singles matches. And then I would have put a space and then started my live notes. So I would have said something like, the Fallen Angel comes out first, and he's got his really cool music. I love him. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, kind of thing. And then I'll type out live while I'm watching. So I think it's ended up pretty cool, but I'm definitely open for ideas. I know some of you might not like that I don't use an HD video. That's because I don't have the best internet. I have to use Wi-Fi right now. So I'm sacrificing HD so that you always hear me clearly. And hopefully my voice never lags, and you always are able to hear every single word I say. So if you're wondering, that's why I use 720 instead of HD. And I like this format that I do it. I like that it's a little bit different, that I don't have the borders and I don't have a green screen and stuff like that. I try to put on a different wrestling shirt every single time, and kind of give you like that's so you usually like for this one I have the Mr. Wonderful, but say it was Raw, I would have the Raw logo up there, then maybe like a t-shirt with Kevin Owens or something on it, and then I try to wear different hats. This one's Wichita State University Shockers. So just like kind of make that just to be a little bit different and not have like the same, oh, here's the sleek looking border like every other guy on YouTube and whatnot has. So, and it's definitely more important about what you hear from me instead of seeing me. Of course, I'm a little bit animated. You'll always see me shaking my head a lot. A lot of that is because I'm trying to keep rhythm. So I never, because I do take really thorough notes for all these recaps and reviews, but I never want it to sound like I'm reading out, you know what I mean? So you'll see me kind of wiggling my head and keeping a beat to it. I am a drummer. I was a drummer in bands and stuff for a long time, so I have good rhythm. So that if you see me using my head when I'm doing the recap and stuff like that, that's because I'm trying to get a nice rhythm, not really spitting bars kind of rhythm, but I don't want it to ever sound like I'm reading out my notes that I took, which I did. I use, like I said, I take good thorough notes. Like this is the one time of the week where I don't take any single notes. I'm not reading off of anything right now, so it's flowing really good. Because I have things to say, but I do try to end. So I'll do a little preview each time there's a review for something, whether it be MLW, NWA, Raw, or anything in the world, G1 Climax. I'll say a little preview. Here's what they told us. Here's what was announced before the match even started. And then I try to give you a spoiler free so that we can ask questions like, oh, I wonder if Christopher Daniels is going to win this match and stuff like that. Then you can get all my inner thoughts and whatnot going into how I felt about what was going on. So pretty cool stuff, I think, overall. I hope you guys like it. I hope we can grow. And let's get into talking about this week. And it was a pretty decent week. Like I said, G1 started. Let's bring up the so if this is your first time watching the podcast, and again, I don't put this up on any like, you can't find this in podcast form. You can only find me on YouTube, and that's because I do want to always have this cage match .net page so that I can show you guys how cool it is, and we can walk through what's happening. So let me bring that up right now, and I'm gonna just, it's a good way to preview what's or I mean, go through all the results. So like I said, I have every single review individually up, like where they're by themselves, and I don't talk really about, like I had to talk about NXT 2.0 on AEW Dynamite today or this week because Troy Two Dimes Donovan, who got recently released, has showed up out of nowhere on AEW. So that's the only time you'll hear me kind of talk about, other than like when I'm doing my previews and like, oh yeah, these guys fought in ROH and PWG and whatnot. So, but other than that, each thing is like, some people only like AEW, some people only like WWE. Maybe there's people here that don't like either of them. They just want to hear about New Japan. They don't want to hear me talk about other companies while they're watching that review. So I try to do things like that for sure. So let's bring up cagematch.net. If you've never been here, you're in for a treat. I love this website for sure. So let me get it to the big version. There we go. So I hope you guys can see it all right. Let's go through this. This is some really cool stuff. So for instance, if you want to know exactly what's on Rampage tonight, but you don't want the spoilers, so I try my very, very hardest to keep my ear to the ground for all the news and rumors and whatnot, but still be spoiler free so you can get all my thoughts spoiler free. Also, I like to watch wrestling spoiler free. So, anyway, this might be a couple spoilers as far as who's wrestling on Rampage. So if you don't want to know what the unannounced match was, and the only thing we knew that Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter were going to have a tag team match, but we didn't know against who it was. So this would be a little bit of a spoiler alert for that. But I'm not showing anything, anybody winning or anything like that. So then this is the kind of stuff that it tells you. It tells you what day it was taped. So it was taped on the 20th, which was right after Dynamite. And oh well, this was another spoiler too. This was the unannounced match, and we do get to see Hangman Page and John Silver fighting the Butcher and the Blade. So we don't know any of the stuff here. Lee Moriarty versus Dante Martin is going to be great. Lee Moriarty failed to win the ROH title last week, and then Stokely Hathaway, formerly known as, oh gosh, what was his name in the Diamond Mine? Malcolm Bivens. Stokely Hathaway asked Lee Moriarty to join him and leave Lee Moriarty's current sensei or manager, or however you want to say it, Matt Sydal. So Matt Sydal set this match up, Lee Moriarty versus Dante Martin. So yeah, pretty good show. It looks like I'm really looking forward to Jay Lethal versus Christopher Daniels, and this is the go home show for a really good looking ROH event. that's happening tomorrow. So I can't wait for that one for sure. Let's go. And then this is the point where we kind of just go over some of the results that happened since the last time I did the podcast. I try to release these every Friday afternoon. So before we start Smackdown and Rampage and anything that's over the weekend. So then we can also preview any of the big shows over the weekend as well. So like I said, we had G1 start this week since the last podcast. Another kind of lackluster SmackDown. So while we go through all the results, I also try to figure out um, what are the 5 best matches of the week in no particular order. I just kind of want to give you 5 matches that I would recommend if you didn't see that you have to go see. So um, what was last weekend? The 16th, or was it the 15th? Let me find. There we go. So the 15th was the last Friday, and we'll just kind of see what we can find. So we'll start with SmackDown. That was the first show. Um, and I should say I was going to do a little bit of a news section. The latest news. So I seemingly WWE always is releasing all their biggest news on Friday now, probably because it'll have the least amount of impact on the shareholders and the stocks. Since it's about to be the weekend, but they can't just release business news on the weekend. So that's the closest they can get. Anyway, we found out that um, what was I going to say? Oh, Triple H has been announced as returning to his old job as executive vice president of WWE and of talent relations. I think the head of talent relations. So that is huge. Papa Triple H is back. He's going to be back pointing fingers at all the champions, I think, and all that. I don't know if this confirms that Triple H will be running NXT again, or if he'll have any influence on creative whatsoever, or if he'll just be behind the scenes, pretty much being the mediator between the office, Vince McMahon, and all the talent, the wrestlers. So that's probably a great thing. Everybody, all the wrestlers love Triple H, Papa Triple H, that kind of stuff. So last week on Friday, this was looks like a couple dark matches that we didn't even see on TV. I don't remember seeing Raquel or Sonya Deville, so apparently that happened in a dark match. And then also in a dark match, Drew Gulak and Ricochet teamed up for the second time this year, losing the Los Lotharios. So those ones weren't on TV. That's interesting to see here, though. I was wondering where Raquel Rodriguez has been, and Sonya Deville for that matter. And then, unfortunately, Ricochet couldn't even get on the main show, and he's one of the best wrestlers on the entire roster. Anyway, we had a Liv Morgan versus Natalya. It went almost 9 minutes, and I was kind of like I was saying earlier about Natalya losing the previous week in 2 minutes to a one-legged Ronda Rousey. It was kind of ridiculous, but and they it was ridiculous to have Liv Morgan struggle and win in any competitive match. And of course, this was competitive. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then they have Kayla Braxton come in and tell Liv Morgan, well, you beat Natalya tonight, but you didn't do it nearly as convincing or as easily as Ronda Rousey. So that's the actual story they're going with. And it's going to be a good story unless Liv Morgan just loses at SummerSlam to Ronda Rousey. Then it's a terrible story. But if Liv Morgan is able to beat Ronda Rousey, I guess it makes sense. Liv Morgan is the huge underdog in that match, despite being the champion. So Liv Morgan just won the title at Money in the Bank, since of course the women aren't allowed to hold the briefcase for more than 24 hours. Heaven forbid. But Liv Morgan cashed in the same night on a wounded Ronda Rousey and won in 30 seconds. So we'll actually get to see Liv versus Ronda at SummerSlam, and they have a face-to-face tonight, which I'm looking forward to. Not for the face-to-face because Ronda's always terrible at talking, and Liv Morgan isn't much better. But we are live in Boston, Massachusetts tonight for SmackDown, which is Sasha Banks' country. And if you know, you know. Basically, all this trouble with Sasha Banks came to a head because of Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey came in. I think Sasha Banks was going to have a good chance to win that Royal Rumble, but instead it goes to Ronda. Then Ronda gets the big title match at WrestleMania, and so on and so forth. All leading up to they were going to have Sasha Banks lose to Ronda at Hell in the Cell, and that was the final straw. If you remember, it was going to be Naomi fighting for Bianca for the title. Meanwhile, Sasha is going to be fighting and losing both. So basically, they were upset. The final straw was they were upset that the tag titles weren't even going to be defended, wasn't going to have any storylines. And in the meantime, the two tag champions are going to have to just go lose to the two singles champions because they didn't have anybody else to fight up against, which is a whole the bigger problem, which Sasha Banks and Naomi obviously would have been seeing on SmackDown, where they brought up Xia Li, Shotzi, what was it? Tegan Knox was there and got fired immediately. So did the woman, I can't remember her name, from the Hit Row. And then there's one more. Oh, Aaliyah. Like, all those women came up to SmackDown, and WWE did absolutely nothing with them. And so, like, all of that came to a head, and that's why Naomi and Sasha Banks left. And I don't blame them at all. Like, we saw on this week's NXT 2.0, Cora Jade, who just won the title, threw it in the trash. Cora Jade threw the NXT Women's Tag title in the trash. And sure, they might not be gone forever, but look at what happened with the WWE titles. As soon as Naomi and Sasha Banks put them on the desk of John Laurinaitis and said, "We're out of here. Here's the titles," we've never seen the tag titles ever again on the WWE version. So now that one of the NXT titles just got thrown in the trash on their own television story, show, I mean, it pretty much tells me that the women's tag titles are gone. Everything about the women's division in WWE is a mess, and that's why Sasha Banks and Naomi left, because they couldn't get their way. Don't forget, as much as we love Sasha Banks and as much as she's one of the greatest women's wrestlers ever, Naomi was having a career year. Go back to that main event against Charlotte, I think earlier in the year or the end of last year. One of the best women's matches in the last calendar year, and probably the best one that was on Raw or SmackDown. Naomi had improved leaps and bounds in the 10 years that she's been in WWE, and she was having a career year where I thought she wasn't getting as much respect as she should, for sure. I think it should have been like a Naomi could have won the Royal Rumble. I think that would have been a way better story to have Naomi beat Charlotte at have a rematch of that really good match they had on SmackDown, run it back at WrestleMania, and then have Naomi get the big WrestleMania win. I think that would have been much, much, much better. Instead, we got Ronda Rousey, and she's been terrible since she's returned. Only one good match or segment so far, and that was at WrestleMania Backlash. So, long story short, we are in tonight on SmackDown, Sasha Banks country, her hometown of Boston, Massachusetts. It'll be Liv Morgan in the ring with Ronda Rousey, who Ronda will probably be talking, will probably be lethargic and mumbling her words and looking like she doesn't give a F about being there. Meanwhile, those fans probably know that what happened with Sasha, and they have a potential to hijack this SmackDown, and I can't wait. I'm so thankful that SmackDown's live and not recorded like it used to be, because there's a great chance that the crowd hijacks SmackDown tonight. So that should be pretty amazing. That's really the thing I'm looking forward to the most. So Brock Lesnar is going to be there tonight, but I'm not like excited for that at all. Maybe he'll destroy the Usos, or best case scenario, Sami Zayn and Brock Lesnar do something again like they did in the past. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, Drew McIntyre just destroyed Ridge Holland. Sheamus keeps ducking him. This time, instead of talking about the virus, he talked about the pox, which is in bad taste from WWE. There's no reason to write that kind of stuff into your storylines just for S and giggles, like there's no reason to do that kind of stuff. So hopefully they stop doing that on top of whatever else. So I would guess at this point, since they've dragged it out this will be the third week, we don't know what will happen tonight, but I'm guessing it'll be Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus at SummerSlam. The winner gets number one contendership at Clash at the Castle in Wales in the United Kingdom. So, which is in about 5 weeks away. Madcap Moss vs. Theory was the best match on this card, but it had a DQ. Before the match, what was his name? Heyman wanted Madcap Moss to injure Theory because Heyman's a little worried about Theory's briefcase and stuff like that. So we didn't really get that too much. Madcap Moss did attack Theory after the match a little bit, but only for 1 second. So Angelo Dawkins, Jimmy, that was another controversial. The shoulders were up type deal, and the whole what do you call it? story of this has been who's the special referee was going to be. And nobody would have guessed it's Jeff Jarrett, of all people, only because SummerSlam is in Nashville, Tennessee. So that's not even the only ridiculous Jeff Jarrett news we got this week. I think I might have to cover the Ric Flair last match. I don't want to support him. I don't think Ric Flair should be in the ring with a pacemaker and blood thinners and at the age of 75, first of all. And it pretty much just looks like Ric Flair wants to um, pass away inside the ring, for lack of a better thing to term. Which could be messy. And I don't really want to support it, but they really put together a really good card. It's like a true Forbidden Door type deal. There's people from WWE, Impact, AEW, New Japan, AAA, CMLL, both together, I think. Just so many different Forbidden Door type things for this Ric Flair match, which I think is on the same day as SummerSlam. I think SummerSlam's a little bit earlier in the day, and then later that night is the Ric Flair final match card. I might be wrong, but I'll have to look into that. But either way, Ric Flair will be teaming up with his new son-in-law, Mr. Charlotte Flair, Andrade, El Idolo, as you guys know. And then they'll team up to fight Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, of all things. So Jeff Jarrett, they ran a little angle where Jeff Jarrett made Ric Flair busted open in an attack in a parking lot. So yeah, this guy's just asking for it. Ric Flair just, I don't know, man. But they put together such a ridiculous card. Like MLW guy Jacob Fatu is gonna fight for the Impact title, and just a bunch of different ridiculous matchups. So that's gonna be pretty cool. That'll be so we're only 1 week in 8. That'll be next weekend. So in 8 days from now is SummerSlam. And there's reports that WWE doesn't like the card for SummerSlam. I mean, I agree with them, but you guys made the card, not me. So maybe we'll see some things change in the coming days. That's kind of interesting. And a dark match after SmackDown, Riddle and Omos. Like, was anybody that excited to see Omos? I'm sure they were for Riddle, but that's kind of funny. No, no top 5 matches of the week contenders here. Wasn't a good SmackDown. So I think Rampage was definitely a little bit better. Let's see if we can find that on the list. And look at all the Friday shows throughout the world. This is Friday night. That's where Impact had the. We can just go into this because that's what happened last night. Pretty good show on Impact. These are non-spoilers for like all the other matches that'll be there, but here we go. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong one. Oh, they just took out. I see what they did now. It's different than I looked when I looked yesterday. So we'll just look at Impact now. It was Impact number. Where is it? Oh well, they don't have it, and they don't have the matches that were there listed here either anymore. So screw them. Anyway, let's try and find. Oh, here it is. All right, so pretty good Impact. This was from last night, so we skipped ahead a little bit. Impact's always the last one I watch of the week before we start the next podcast every week on Friday afternoons. So we started with a really good women's tag match. It was the Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo now have special music for their tag team. They've got matching outfits, and they've got a tag team name. So I thought it might have just been pronounced VXT, and I thought, what is that, an NXT type thing? Which I think it is. I think it's an NXT type thing, but it's pronounced Vexed. And if you don't know, Vexed means like you're angry or upset or kind of deal. I played FIFA with a lot of Jamaicans, and they always use the word vexed. But this is pronounced vexed, and I think it's an NXT thing. Where we also heard, weirdly, that Deonna Purrazzo and Chelsea Green is claiming that Deonna Purrazzo came up with the gimmick that Axiom now has a couple years ago when they were still in NXT, and that's pretty hilarious. And I believe them too. Why would you randomly say, "Oh, I came up with that Axiom gimmick"? There's no reason to just do that. Anyway, Vex had a pretty good match against Jordan Grace and Mia Yim, which Mia Yim is the #1 contender to Jordan Grace's Knockouts title. And by winning this match, Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo were granted #1 contendership for the Knockouts tag title. So if you want good women's wrestling in America, of course, all the best women's promotions are in Japan. Probably 3 or 4 of the best women's wrestling promotions, more than WWE, AEW, and Probably not all of them, all four of them Impact, but Impact is the best women's division because of the fact, not necessarily they don't have the best talent over the other two. It's not like I'm saying they have the best wrestlers and the best talent. It's because Impact actually books the women the same way that they book the men. All the women have storylines and they don't have to be about title matches, and you can get more than one or two matches, and they all have stories on each episode. So shout out the Impact, the best women's division in America and North America. Probably, I don't know. I don't think Mexico it can compete, but maybe they can. I'm not quite as familiar with the Mexican product. Anyway, pretty cool stuff here. That was one of the matches of the night. This one got highly rated, but it was only 5 votes. I did not like Diener in this match. One of the worst Mike Bailey matches of all year, and it was still probably like 3.5 stars because Mike Bailey's so amazing. One of the top 5 wrestlers in my opinion, alongside Moxley, Takeshita, I know I'm forget. Oh, Dax Harwood, and I know there's another one that I should say in there, but those are kind of like my top 4 of the year so far. Masha Slamovich defeated Madison Rayne in ease, and now Giselle Shaw is Masha's next target. So it looks like Masha's just going through everybody. She's pretty cool. She's got a great gimmick. She's got all these stories that don't even involve the title yet. So eventually, I think Chelsea will get a title shot for the Knockouts title. That should be interesting. Bullet Club's newest members, Ace Austin and Chris Bay, who weirdly joined Bullet Club and became faces, even though like maybe Chris Bay was a face before, but Ace Austin was a heel in Impact. But now that they're fighting Honor No More, who everybody, all the Impact fans hates, which they should. It's basically an ROH heel invasion faction. So Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, aka the OGK, aka the Kingdom, lost here even after so they were looking to become number 1 contenders for the Impact tag titles that the Good Brothers, also in Bullet Club, the Good Brothers have those tag titles right now, but they couldn't even get by the Ace Austin Chris Bay tag team, so maybe not. But definitely, probably put this in the top 5 matches of the week for sure. You have to go watch this one. It's only the first time Alex Shelley fought his Motor City Machine Gun teammate Chris Sabin since 2009. And that was in a match where Alex Shelley actually won his only singles title, I think maybe ever in any big promotion, but at least in Impact, was for the X Division title. So this was last night for the number 1 contendership for the Impact World title. That's kind of why Motor City Machine Guns were even fighting against each other to begin with. It's not a breakup angle, or at least not yet, or anything like that. But Alex Shelley never even so Alex Shelley's never had the Impact World title. He's never fought for the Impact World title, and he's never been in a number 1 contendership match for the Impact World title. So of course, Alex Shelley spent most of his career, and when I say Impact title, I mean the lineage goes back to the TNA World title and the NWA TNA World title. But Alex Shelley was stuck in the X Division. Not, I say stuck, but you know what I mean. In the X Division, which was usually better than the World title division most times. But Alex Shelley was in that. Then he also had some knee injuries and wrestled in Japan and stuff. So, but it's really cool. Alex Shelley did become the number 1 contendership, the number 1 contender for Josh Alexander's world title, Impact World title, and I'm really looking forward to that match. So that'll be at Emergence in Chicago, August 12th. Hopefully in the main event, Alex Shelley versus Josh Alexander, and that'll be one of the rare occurrences where in 2022 I'll actually have a rooting interest. I really try to never have a rooting interest in any match ever, and world titles, I'm so jaded. It's because I never refused to stop watching WWE. So now I'm just a jaded, like after watching a decade of John Cena and the beginning of Roman Reigns, where it wasn't very good. I'm just to the point where I don't care who wins a match. I don't care who's the title holder. It's all just, is it entertaining? Is it a good match? Was that a funny segment backstage kind of deal? So that's what I look for now. But I will actually have a rooting interest that night. I'm not going to cry and complain if Alex Shelley loses, but I'll really celebrate hard if Alex Shelley beats Josh Alexander for the Impact World title on August 12th. So go check this match out. It's definitely in my top 5 matches this week from Friday to Friday. And really good stuff. They definitely made sure it wasn't like an X Division match, so it's way different from their X Division title match back in 2009. But Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin had a really good match where they were attacking body parts, old school style. It had some a slower pace to it. I appreciated it. It was very story driven, and of course that's a really good thing when you have such a tenured tag team together to have a story. So everybody seemed to like this episode. It looks like it's getting good ratings. This guy's like, really good show, killer matches, just see the main event, and the rest kept well carried as well. One thing that I wish it would kind of show us what happened in some of the non-wrestling segments, like this happened. But Killer Kelly, who you guys might or might not know, is going to make her debut next week on Dynam or sorry, Impact. I wish I still hate that Impact is the name of the company and it's the name of the television show as well. But anyway, it'll always be TNA to me. But Killer Kelly's we had the third week of her vignette opening, like debuting her character type deal. She's always been named Killer Kelly, but it looks like after week 1, where all we really knew about Killer Kelly with her new character in Impact was that she liked seedy old motels and hanging out at night and stuff like that. And then we saw her like from the only the ankles down, like getting naked and about to take a shower. So I thought after week 1, is she a lady of the night in SW, which what's going on here? Then by week 2, it kind of seemed like, oh well, is she like a hitman or an assassin? Is the killer part in her name like literal? Which she's always been Killer Kelly because she has like an MMA background and she's like good at matches. But I think they might be going with a hitman type gimmick here for Killer Kelly, which should be interesting. And like I said, some of the best, probably the best women's division in all of North America is an Impact because of the fact that they actually give the women stories other than, oh yeah, you're number 1 contender now, and go back to the line if you lose, like we'll see you on TV in a month kind of deal. So all the women have stories. It's great. Impact's been doing some great stuff. They've got 3 separate divisions where they all have intricate stories within those divisions. And I guess you could even break it down even more. So the only thing missing in Impact, I think all Impact needs to become great. You're gonna laugh at me because, oh, more belts. But no, because of the fact that they have 3 established divisions, 2 of those divisions have a singles title and a tag title. So I really, really want an Impact X division tag title to be introduced, and then we can go forward with, oh yeah, Impact has 3 separate divisions, each one has a singles and a tag division. Like look at Ace Austin and Chris Bay are here, Motor City Machine Guns. I know there's another one. You could bring back Zach Wentz and reform the Rascals with Trey Miguel, and I think there's even more. Crazy Steve and Taurus, maybe a PCO and Vincent would be more X division kind of style. So I think there's enough tag teams here for a men's like heavyweight division and an X division, if you want to call it that way. But great stuff going on in Impact. You can skip the Mike Bailey Diener match because anytime Diener was on offense, it was terrible. But Mike Bailey, just my goodness, is he one of the best wrestlers in the world? I can't wait for maybe get signed to a little bit. Not no offense to Impact, but I just like Impact's kind of tough because you get like they take 1 show a month and then you can't ever really look at news or anything about them because you'll just find out what happened that month on Impact and ruin a whole month of stories. So it's like Impact is in this tiny little bubble where I can't even interact with it for fear of spoilers and whatnot. So we'll do our best to kind of cover it here, spoiler free on this channel. We'll always be spoiler free here on this channel. Nothing makes me more upset than spoilers. So let's get into G1. Started this week. This is where we can start to find some better matches. Well, Impact was fine, but SmackDown was terrible. So let's see. Night 1, like I said, even all the tag matches and stuff have been pretty good. So not only do I go live each and every day, right when whenever the New Japan shows or the G1 shows end, I'm live right after. But later that same day, I also put out a separate video with all the translations for the backstage comments, and I kind of acted out a little bit, not to a cheesy extent, but like if Lance Archer was whispering like he was, I would be like, "Bad luck, Fale. I'm not gonna lose to you," or stuff like that. So I try not to make it too cheesy, but I also you can find the translations and all these backstage comments with subtitles for free and stuff like that on New Japan's YouTube and NJPW World.com. But I know a lot of people don't like to read subtitles, so I don't want anybody to have to miss out. That's where you get these shows are only basically like wrestling, wrestling, wrestling when it's the actual event. But every single wrestler has like a backstage promo where they act like it's a press conference with real journalists and stuff like that. And they're not really scripted, so you can get some pretty funny stuff, pretty entertaining things. But they do kind of that's how you get the storylines fleshed out, other than the story of the actual matches. So really important. I think a lot of people miss that and don't realize that that's a thing when they go to check out New Japan for the first time, and they just see that it's match, match, match. There's never any stories. There's never any promos, stuff like that. Well, they exist. They're there every single time. You just have to watch it in a separate video afterward and get all the like as if it was a real sporting event. Watch the press conference after the event. So stuff like that. So all these tag matches have been pretty good. And we started out with and then so over here is all the users voted opinions out of 10, 1 to 10, 6 point, or I think it's 0 to 10, 6.3. So for instance is 122 people, and then the Wrestling Observer newsletter, aka Uncle Dave Meltzer, hit with his 5-star rating. So he gave this one like a 3 and 1/4 star, for example. Anyway, Aaron Hanari defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi. Um, and this was Tanahashi tying the record for 21st ever G1, while Aaron Hanari was in his very first. Aaron Hanari had recently turned heel in the last year, used to be a trainee underneath Tanahashi. So to me, that was one of the easiest upsets to call in the entire G1. And yes, it came true. We started G1 with a big upset. One thing about G1 this year is losses matter even more than previous years because we've expanded the 4 different blocks. There's now less people in each block. There's only 6 matches in each block, and only the winner can go through. So basically, if you're at 2 losses, you're in danger of not getting through. Like you need to have either 1 loss or see if you can go undefeated. If you go undefeated, obviously you'll win the group. But I think most of these are going to be like 1 loss, maybe tied with 1 loss kind of deals. So this was a pretty good match. I don't think it would be in my top 5 of the week, but the next one would be. So this match was really good. Will Ospreay defeating El Phantasmo. Definitely go watch this match. This is El Phantasmo's debut as a heavyweight, something that Will Ospreay did transitioning from junior heavyweight to heavyweight a few years back. So a lot of people I've heard say, I think it was post wrestling, called El Phantasmo the Wario to Will Ospreay. He's kind of the dark Will Ospreay, even though Will Ospreay's like heel himself, but El Phantasmo's more goofy and stuff like that. So, but they're very similar, and that match was awesome. Definitely check that one out. We also saw Jay White defeat Sonata in a pretty decent match, and then Okada versus Jeff Cobb, I would also put in my top 5 this week. So, good first night. They had 2 of my top 5 matches of the weekend. I mean, of the whole week. Will Ospreay versus ELP El Phantasmo, and then Okada defeating Jeff Cobb. So Jeff Cobb, if you remember last year in G1, he had a magical run and had a perfect streak. Looked like Jeff Cobb might go on the win G1 last year, but it all came crashing to a screeching halt when Okada beat Jeff Cobb. So Cobb couldn't get his revenge here in the first night of the next G1. In the big block A, all full of monsters, big guys in that block. So pretty good way to kick off this event. 2 matches that I would recommend you guys go watch for sure. So then the next night was the second night of G1. Let me find that on the list. Man, there's always so many weekend events from around the world. Like all these events where they're like weekend events and they're not really like on TV. I struggle with like caring or getting into them, or it's just too confusing if you're not like. That's why I just do like MLW and NWA, because they have a weekly television show and stuff like that. But I know there's a lot of people that prefer the indie style of like getting to watch live wrestling every single weekend, different shows. Oh yeah, there's this guy versus this guy and this guy versus this guy. We know them, and oh, that's kind of a dream match and stuff like that. I watch those every now and then, but you won't really see me covering those shows on here. Like for instance, I think I'm going to do the Ric Flair last match show because it's such a loaded card. So I might do special events like that. But I know there's some people that swear by it. All those people that love indie wrestling and all the different events where you can watch people that are in these big promotions have matches during the weekend. There might not be too much story behind them, but um, they're fun to watch and stuff like that. So we go to the results. This is so from night two. Again, all these preliminary tags are pretty interesting, and then we get pretty interesting backstage comments afterwards. So that's really how we establish all the storylines and stuff going through. Then each night so far, I think it changes. The format changes when we get further on. It's a month-long tournament, but as at the beginning here, we get one match from each block a night, so four different matches, all from a different block, which Tanahashi said in one of his backstage comments. I think it was in night 3 from this Wednesday, that Tanahashi said he does not like this new format. And I do kind of have to agree. It's kind of weird that everyone's just having one match from the block each night, and then only 6 matches total. So some people, like for instance, Filthy Tom Lawler is making his debut in Japan and his debut in G1 at the same time here. And there's going to be, I think, like 3 or 4 events, maybe even 5 before Tom Lawler even has his first G1 match. There's 7 people in each of the 4 blocks. So, like for every time, if you want to look at it different rounds, each round has somebody not wrestling. So that's why there's like 10, 11-day gaps where they even have a G1 match. Of course, they're going to have all these preliminary tag matches, but those aren't as tough or hard or whatnot. So part of G1 is always that it's in the hot, humid summers of Japan, and they have to have a ton of matches all at once. And I get it. They don't, all these companies, especially when, for instance, like AEW sent over Lance Archer, like all these companies don't want to get injuries, and injuries was a thing in the past, but that's also like, I don't know, it's tough. It is tough, and I feel like the hype for G1 was already a little bit down because the hype again around New Japan has kind of been down in general lately. A lot of it having to do with they cannot cheer with their mouths, they cannot use their mouths to say anything in the crowd. So these are clap crowds. The only thing they could do is clap. And I think that's why New Japan fans or people that used to watch New Japan aren't so much anymore. And I think this whole changing the format of G1 is not going to help New Japan whatsoever, and Tanahashi agrees with that for sure. He does not like the new format either. But anyway, worst match of the week, Toru Yano defeating Jonah. It was typical Toru Yano, chicken ass heel tactics. Just we've seen it all from Yano. I don't ever want to see Yano wrestle again. Why is he in G1? Why is he defeating Jonah in Jonah's debut G1 match? Like, it's just, somebody make it make sense. It was terrible to watch. It even made the big Zack Sabre Jr. vs. Kenta match that I was looking forward to the most on this card, it even took away from that a little bit, because wrestling isn't in a vacuum. I had to just finish watching the stupid Yano match to get to this one, and it kind of bled into me not liking Zack Sabre Jr. vs. Kenta as much as I should have. But I would say definitely go watch that match. That is in my top 5. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Kenta is our 4th of the top 5 matches. Remember, not in any particular order, but so far it's Alex Shelley versus Chris Sabin from Impact, and then it's from night 1 of G1. Okada versus Cobb, and ELP El Phantasmo versus Will Ospreay. Add Zack Sabre Jr. versus Kenta to that list. It was a great, great match. Zack Sabre Jr. defeating his former sensei Kenta. So Kenta fought Zack Sabre Jr. in the UK, ended up bringing him over to Noah, and Kenta basically helped train Zack Sabre Jr. at Noah Dojo and stuff like that. So that had a lot of story behind it. Kenta's one of my favorites in New Japan right now, not because he's a legend of the business. I mean, that's part of it, and his great matches are part of it too. But Kenta is probably one of the most entertaining in all those backstage comments, which again, you guys can't, if you watch New Japan, do not miss the backstage comments. And if you do, I say them word for word in a separate video every day after the event. And I don't get the translations till about 15 hours after the event ends, somewhere around there. But just come check it out. It won't be too long. Those they only last about 18 to 22 minutes, somewhere around that range. And you can just like they're 30 minutes when you watch them with the subtitles and stuff. But if you just want to check them out on my channel, I can get it done in about 18, 22 minutes. Then you know all the stories and stuff, all the different funny things that Kenta's been doing, for example, and stuff like that. So Juice Robinson finished the night beating Shingo Takagi in Shingo's hometown. Um, Oh, and speaking of hometown, so Juice, yeah, that was kind of shocking, and Shingo didn't get to talk in front of his hometown crowd and celebrate at the end. But I skipped over this Tai Chi Tomohiro Ishii match might make it into my top five. I'm gonna have to go through the rest. This one's on the fringe, but Tai Chi defeating Ishii, Ishii's whole thing that he's been saying in the backstage comments is that he really wants Tai Chi to stop being so aloof, stop depending on others, start carrying. You're really good. Get into it. And this whole match was about breaking Tai Chi out of like his aloofness and whatnot and becoming a serious competitor. So that was really, really good story to tell. It was a hard hitting match from the very beginning. Both guys probably had to take ice baths and sleep in entire next day. So shout out to Tai Chi and Ishii for that match. It might make my top 10 for sure. So I mean top five. It's definitely in my top 10. I'm not sure if it's five or six though. Let's look at the rest of what happened this week before we get to that point. And so if you're just tuning in, I have a weekly podcast on Friday, and then we figure out what is the top five matches in no particular order that you have to go watch. Five matches to have to go watch. So far, it's Alex Shelley versus Chris Sabin on. Let's just watch. Let's just check out the other New Japan show while we're on New Japan. But it was Alex Shelley versus Chris Sabin from Impact. It was Okada versus Jeff Cobb from G1, and ELP El Phantasmo versus Osprey, and as well as I think of it. It's because I already moved on. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's just move on. Goto versus Naito. Huge upset in that one. Goto defeating Naito. That was a shocking win right there. Dave Meltzer gave this one 4 stars. I could agree with that. It was a pretty good match. A lot of story driven one. It wasn't very high paced, but it had a lot of story going for it. So I would definitely watch Goto versus Naito for you. But the other 3 matches on this card were dreadful, absolutely dreadful. Yujiro Takahashi winning with a show hitting a wrench over Finley's head in typical House of Torture cheating fashions. Not a very good match even before that lame ending. Tamatanga beat Chase Owens. That was probably at least better than the other ones, but Chase Owens was also getting some cheating and stuff done. Whenever Tamatanga was on attack, though, holy crap. Tamatanga's offense is some of the best offense in the world right now, and a lot of people wouldn't say that or be aware of that. But Tamatanga is super crisp, super quick with all his offense. Unfortunately, in this particular match, Tamatanga only got to go on offense for a couple of minutes of the 13-minute match. But so that one was kind of a letdown too. But it does tell me that Tamatanga is going to have some great matches in this G1, including I think Tamatanga will beat Jay White in the final match of the block, in the final night of block matches to win the block. I think Tamatanga will beat Jay White in that, win the block, maybe get to the finals and have another great match in the semifinals against whoever that is. Probably lose in the finals, but what Tamatanga will have done is gotten himself a title shot. So at a what's the word, future event, I could definitely see after G1 Tamatanga challenging, probably failing, but challenging against Switchblade Jay White for the IWGP World Heavyweight title, and that should be a really epic match. It's probably that one will be. I already think like that's what I'm looking forward to the most in the G1 blocks, almost more than anything, is how good is that Tamatanga versus Jay White match going to be, and then can we run it back in the main event of a separate event for the title in like a half-hour type match. And if Tonga does look good in that match against Jay White, maybe he could win the title in the future. If they see that oh man, kind of deal. So, and we will be getting clap crowds back. So it would be awesome to have Tamatanga versus Jay White once the crowd can actually cheer again, I think, starting in September. So that'll be fun. Really terrible match here. Bad Luck Fale should not be in G1, but Archer looked amazing. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Lance Archer can do in the other matches. This one was a terrible ending as well, with a count out where it looked like Lance Archer could have got back in and just didn't, because that's what they written. But even if he had pulled it off and it didn't look like that, having Lance Archer lose by count out was pretty lame. Lance Archer looked amazing in that match with his agility. He's a 45-year-old, 6'8", 300-pound guy doing like lucha moves, like lucha style moves for sure. That match was pretty insane. So I would definitely go check out Goto vs. Naito. You could skip the rest of this card and just listen to my review, and definitely the backstage comments as well. So, because those were important. So let's go back. I don't think we ever looked at Rampage, so I don't think I ever found Rampage. So I can't even remember what was on Rampage. Oh, it had a really good Lee Moriarty versus Jonathan Grisham ROH title match, where we ended up finding out after that Claudio Castagnoli will fight for the title, ROH World title. And if you're looking for a full preview for ROH Death Before Dishonor, which is tomorrow, I will have the full preview on tonight's Rampage review. So I will review Rampage, which is the go home show for ROH Death Before Dishonor, and then I'll put a whole preview on that one. So I will be previewing that on the Rampage review. So it looks like I missed Raw. There it is. So Raw wasn't anything too special again this week. Bianca Belair defeated Carmella in a Raw Women's title match. It wasn't as good as the match the week before, which is never good when you're running back. When you're watching a match for the second week in a row, having the second one not be as good is always a problem. Damian Priest versus Rey Mysterio couldn't even get up to 5 minutes, and Rey Mysterio loses. I don't understand what they're doing with Judgment Day and stuff like that. Hopefully Rhea Ripley can return from injury. They desperately need her back with the group, and they are definitely struggling with creative. It looks like Edge is going to return at a huge Raw this Monday night in Madison Square Garden in New York City, which will also be the 20th anniversary celebration of being in WWE for Rey Mysterio the same night. I'm assuming Dominic is going to turn on Rey on that night, but we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, Edge is probably going to return as well, maybe setting up like a Rey Mysterio and Edge versus Damian Priest and Finn Balor match at SummerSlam. I could definitely see that happening. So we're only 8 days away from SummerSlam, and we've got SmackDown tonight, and then Raw is going to be at Madison Square Garden. So 2 big WWE events in 1 week coming up, and we've also got the big Ric Flair last match event, G1 going on, and so there's just so much going on. And then tomorrow night is Death Before Dishonor, which could be on paper looking like it could be one of the best events of the entire year, any promotion anywhere in the world. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I don't know if I can come on live after that tomorrow, but I will definitely have a review for ROH Death Before Dishonor. You know that. It'll be up here for sure. Seth Rollins versus Ezekiel was one of the better matches of the night, but the crowd just does not care about Ezekiel whatsoever. Now that Ezekiel's been gone, that's the former Elias. He's playing the character of, I'm Elias's younger brother, Ezekiel. So he's just clean shaven and he's the same guy, but he has this different. Basically, it took away all the singing and the songs and everything that made Elias cool and just made him a plain wrestler with no character whatsoever. And the crowd isn't liking it, oddly enough. Anyway, Angelo Dawkins defeated Omos by DQ, and then right after that, it was made a tag team match playa from Adam Pearce with MVP in a suit. That one also was DQ, so some pretty crappy matches there. The only other decent match of the night, AJ Styles defeating Theory by count out, of course, because we can't have some decisive victories on Raw or SmackDown. And then a terrible, dreadful last match. And it wasn't even the main event segment, because the damn main event segment was Logan Paul on Miz TV, which set up a Miz versus Logan Paul match at SummerSlam, which, oh man, not looking forward to that. So anyway, this Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Dana Brooke versus Doudrop, Nikki ASH, and Tamina match was a sham. This is why I'm saying that by far, unequivocally, undoubtedly, not saying they have the best talent on the roster, but no doubt in my mind, the Knockouts division in Impact is the best women's division in all of major American wrestling. Like the way they actually get stories. This, meanwhile, this thrown together with no story behind it, 6-man tag couldn't even be a regular match. It ends up being 6 different title changes of the 24/7 title. And remember, this match, look at it, has only lasted 2.5 minutes. In that 2.5 minutes, 6 title changes happened for the NXT. I mean, for the 24/7 title. Akira Tozawa and Reggie were out there. Good thing at least Asuka didn't get involved with that mess. As soon as Dana Brooke ended up back, Dana Brooke started the night with the 24/7 title and ended that little flurry of title changes with the 24/7 title. Dana Brooke ran away after that. Asuka quickly just makes Nikki ASH tap out. And what are we even doing with the women's division? I thought we were trying to have a story with Doudrop and Nikki ASH, but nope, that whole story dropped when Sasha and Naomi left. Now we got rid of the tag titles. So, we don't have a tag title? Well, we definitely can't have any stories for the women if there's no title involved. So, yeah, Nikki ASH has just done nothing. I thought we were going to make her not be a superhero anymore and go back to being like a serious competitor as Nikki Cross with Doudrop. They could have been a vicious, heel tag team that was super aggressive and stuff like that. But nope, you can just be in like 24/7 segments and 2.5 thrown a minute together matches until we inevitably release you and then blame you for not getting over, even though we never gave you anything. So thank you, WWE. Hopefully Triple H and Stephanie can start getting more and more creative power. Maybe Vince McMahon can finally be taken out of WWE. We can get like Paul Heyman and stuff like that doing creative instead, and everything will improve. But until that point, while Vince is still in charge, the women's division is never going to do anything. So it's definitely upsetting, that's for sure. Nothing good on Raw. Raw was a waste this week for sure. They gave us about an hour of programming in a 3-hour show. I kid you not. There was 2 different times that they said, "Oh, look let's have a recap of what happened earlier," and it was only like 10 minutes ago, bro. Like, come on. Oh boy. So they stretched that out for 3 hours with only having about an hour and 15 minutes of content. So I do cover main event as well. You usually can get some pretty good matches, and it was a surprisingly good match between Tozawa and Reggie. And then we have the reformation of Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali teaming up together for the first time since 205 Live. That is the heart and soul cruiserweight title. So they fought and lost against the Alpha Academy. By the way, Tozawa beat Reggie, if you were wondering, but I'm sure you weren't. Oh, what's up, Hassan? I didn't see your message. I hope you're doing well. Let's see here. NXT 2.0 was pretty interesting. Let's see if there was any top 5 matches here. So yeah, there was a pretty good match. I think even Dave Meltzer gave it a pretty good rating, which he usually doesn't even rate NXT matches. But JD McDonough, the former Jordan Devlin, defeated Cameron Grimes in his debut match. I guess debut as JD McDonough, I should say. The former longest reigning cruiserweight champion of all time is Jordan Devlin, who was on NXT many times. But anyway, Uncle Dave gave this a 3.5-star rating. The people on the website gave it 7.4 out of 10. I thought it was a pretty good match. I wouldn't put it in my top 5 over any of those G1 matches or Alex Shelley versus Chris Sabin, but definitely go check this one out, especially if you want to see the new JD McDonough character. So the new JD McDonough character, he's basically playing the lead character off of the movie Psycho. So he's a really creepy guy. So after this, then later on, Braun Breaker was in the ring. JD McDonough will be basically is the number 1 contender to Braun Breaker, which if you don't know is Rick Steiner's son, and he's the NXT World Champion. So JD McDonough is the number 1 contender, and told Braun he had a naked mannequin of all things with him. Right behind JD McDonough was a naked mannequin, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to tear your shoulder here with this tendon, and then take apart this tendon until I disable you." So that's the character he's got now. A little creepy, but could be good. This was a good match. Roderick Strong and Damon Kemp, where big things happened. Tony D'Angelo's whole family took out the Creed brothers, which is the other half. Roderick Strong and Damon Kemp are both in Diamond Mine. Roderick Strong's been trying to do some tough love to these youngsters to get them to, I don't know, it seems like he's trying to turn them heel with him. Like Roderick Strong's a heel leader of a babyface faction, which is always a good dynamic. And now they have to all band together in a 4 versus 4 match next week against the entire Tony D'Angelo family, which is also held together by strings. Santos Escobar has been sent to a hospital from Tony D'Angelo for not listening to him. So now he's, through scare tactics, keeping the rest of Legado del Fantasma under the control of Tony D'Angelo's family. So uh, that's a bunch of interesting storylines converging. That'll be a big match next week. We also got the very first ever NXT UK tag title match on American soil. Americans Jensen and Briggs just happened to be over in the NXT UK for some matches when Oliver Carter and Ashton Smith had just won the NXT UK tag titles for the first time. But unfortunately, Ashton Smith got injured in that title match, just like Finn Balor winning the first ever Universal Championship and then having to relinquish it the next night. So same deal there. Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs just happened to be over there, and they won the tag titles when they were vacated. So that was pretty interesting. And they fought former NXT tag team champions from the UK, Pretty Deadly. That whole storyline has been pretty good. Pretty Deadly's been basically wearing like cowboy outfits and mocking the Southerners, Briggs and Jensen, for being rednecks and stuff like that. So pretty good storyline. Briggs and Jensen kept the titles, and now they will fight on NXT UK next week. Next week's NXT UK is a loaded card. We've got Bae Presley versus Amel, which is basically a number one contendership match for the NXT UK tag women's title. And then we've got the NXT tag titles, Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs versus Mark Andrews and Wild Boar. That's going to be a good match. I assume Jensen and Briggs are going to give the titles back to the UK, but maybe they'll win. We'll have to wait and see. But in the main event next week, it'll be Ilya Dragunov defending the NXT UK singles title against not Wild Boar, but Wolfgang, who's been there from the very beginning of NXT UK, has never gotten the title. I don't even think he's gotten a title shot. Maybe he has, but that's going to be a great match. I've heard some rumors that some wild things might be happening in NXT UK. I've been trying my damnedest to not get spoiled on anything, so I'll continue to cover those spoiler-free as much as I can. Axiom, the formerly known as A-Kid, made his debut in a really weird match. Dante Chin is not ready for NXT 2.0. Keep him on level up for now. I wouldn't get rid of him. He's got a good look and a good character to him, but still needs to improve in the ring. Meanwhile, Axiom looked super silky smooth. Just like if it was a video game and we were looking at Axiom stats, he would have a 99 out of 99 agility and quickness and like walking around. He would be one of the quickest like walking around the ring because he just floats around the ring like Seth Rollins kind of does, but maybe even better than that. Unfortunately, it looks like they want Axiom to go more towards his high flying style, where Axiom's whole like cool gimmick when he was a kid wasn't even a gimmick. It was his wrestling style. It was that he can do the high flying stuff, but he could also do a bunch of cool submissions and technical wrestling. And to combine the two together, which isn't like very what's the word? There's not a lot of people in the world that can combine those two things as well as A-Kid does. And now they just want him to be kind of a generic luchador, which is also somewhat racist, in my opinion. Axiom A-Kid is the first ever Spanish. I was about to say Spanish-born WWE guy, but Kane, of all people, was born in Spain. But the first Spaniard to ever be in WWE, and now they put a mask on him and basically tell him, get rid of that submission wrestling and be a luchador. Why? Because they're 60, 70-year-old white guys that just see, oh, you're from Spain, so you're like Mexican. No, sir. Spanish and Mexicans are way different, have way different cultures and stuff. Come on. So anyway, that's interesting. Axiom not only has a mask now, but he thinks he's a superhero and uses math. He can close his eyes and see numbers and stuff like that. He's a mathematician. So we'll see where that goes. The main event from NXT had a shocking return of Zoe Stark from injury. If you had been following along with all the QR codes, then you would have seen like, oh, what are all these clues about? And some people had of course I didn't look because I didn't want any spoilers, so I this was a shock to me. Zoe Stark returned not only to enter this 20 women battle royal number one contendership match, but win it. Zoe Stark goes on to win Cora Jade, who I thought was going to win by cheating and like basically leaving the whole match, coming back in at the end and hoping people forgot about her. But apparently Zoe Stark actually didn't forget about her and heard, or at least heard her coming from behind Cora Jade, that is. And Zoe Stark throws Cora Jade out last to win. Tiffany Stratton was the third to last, and Nikita Lyons was the fourth to last. So that was your final four. So we're looking at some of the people that NXT really care about there with those four. And Zoe Stark, don't forget, before her injury, is a former NXT women's tag team champion with Io Shirai, who's been injured since Stand and Deliver now. There was some rumors that Io Shirai might leave and go back to Stardom, which maybe she should if WWE never turns around their women's division. But if Triple H takes over and stuff like that, maybe women's wrestling is going to make a comeback. And it would be great to have Io Shirai part of that. So in the meantime, I wouldn't even put, if Io Shirai isn't leaving and when Io Shirai is healed from her ankle injury, I would put her right on the main roster. Right the SmackDown you go, Io. There's no all you have to do is say, oh yeah, here comes Io Shirai, and show a bunch of highlights from her in NXT, and then you just have to tell people, oh yeah, she's been one of the longest reigning champions in NXT history, one of the best competitors ever in NXT, former women tag team champion as well. And there you go. You've got a star to go, ready, willing to go on SmackDown, who can out wrestle Liv Morgan with her eyes closed. That's for sure. So I hope that's happening in a perfect world. What I want, I keep telling this on different my reviews and stuff. When I'm complaining about AEW and WWE with their women's wrestling, I'm always like, I really just want a women's only promotion to get like 2 hours live on any network on TV, and maybe it could be something where my thought was Sasha Banks along with her cousin Snoop Dogg and maybe some other hip hop guys could start. If you remember, WWE had the Rock and Wrestling connection with MTV and stuff like that. Maybe we could get a women's 2 hour live every week promotion. It's hip hop and wrestling. It's on BET. And it would be amazing. I think that would be awesome. I think it would start out slow with the ratings, but all of us that actually like women's wrestling will tune in from the episode number one. They could get all the best stars from around the world. Just get rid of the WWE and AEW women's division, since they don't treat them well anyway, and they're basically an afterthought, and they just have them on there to have them on there, not because they want them to be on there. But if we could get all those women together in one promotion in America, 2 hours live every single week, I think we could grow. I think it'll grow enough ratings, because then people will start hearing how great it is and they'll get the fear of missing out. And then all of a sudden the ratings go up. And the only reason I care about ratings is because I wouldn't want it to get canceled after 1 year. So if we can actually get something going and build something up and have it maybe with this hip hop connection, hip hop and wrestling going back to the rock and wrestling connection back in the 80s between WWE, which helped WWE launch worldwide, or nationwide, or whatever, however you want to say it. But um, I think if anybody is listening, I think a hip hop, you have Sasha Banks as like your number one star when you start out. That'll be Sasha Banks' first match out of WWE on this new promotion. They got 2 hours live a week on BET. It's got a lot of hip hop. Maybe you can have a hip hop celebrity guy or girl on there. You never know who's going to turn in. That's the whole connection. So we can get rid of the connection and all that kind of celebrity stuff after a year or two once we get the ratings established. But just like WWE did with having like Wendy Lauper and stuff like that, we could be doing that with Cardi B and stuff like that. So I think that would be amazing. I don't know if anybody else has had that kind of thought. I don't know how many women's wrestling fans watch my channel, but I'm a huge fan because of the Bayley and Sasha Banks matches at not only the Brooklyn match, but if you remember, the Iron Woman match they had after that as well. That's when I became, okay, women's wrestling's good. And it should be respected at just the same as the men. That's definitely what I think. So in current day time, WWE and AEW seemingly doesn't care about women's wrestling. And I would love for that to happen. Sasha Banks having her first match out of WWE with a new women's promotion with a 2 hour weekly, only women. And it would have to be live. You need it to be live. You got to have this be fresh. You got to bring in the hip hop people and the celebrities. And I think it could work, man. I think it could work. Um, let's just check out Dark Elevation. Oh wait, no, Elevation was terrible this week. So I do review Elevation, and and regular dark, but dark was better. It wasn't as good as that crazy dark we got the week before that had Miyu Yamashita versus Thunder Rosa from Tokyo Joshi Pro, as well as Shota Umino versus Pac for the All Atlantic title at Rev Pro in England. Nothing that crazy, which I do hope we start doing that on AEW Dark again. But this week it was all about ROH leading up to this weekend's. Speaking of which, let's just go look at the ROH Death Before Dishonor is this tomorrow on Saturday, the big pay-per-view. So let's see if we can find. I think I might have to actually go over to Ring of Honor, even though it's under All Elite Wrestling right now. So let's check out. It's a really loaded card, guys. Man, if you haven't been following, it looks like it might be amazing. So let's check out the pre-show first, because I think Willow Nightingale for a second time in a row is going to be on the pre-show. And yeah, against Allison Kay, formerly known as Sienna from Impact. Allison Kay has been doing some great work in all kinds of promotions. I've been reviewing her over in NWA, where she just had a really good match against Kylan King, who also used to be on AEW Dark and Dark Elevation a lot. And Allison Kay, she also just recently lost the NWA women's tag titles. NWA also does a pretty good job with their women's division. They just don't have enough weekly television to be up there. I didn't put them up there on the pedestal of women's wrestling, but I think they're even going to add a secondary women's singles title. So they're going to have like a U.S. women's title, a world's women's title, and women's tag team title. So NWA, if they could get a live television show as well, could start definitely might have a chance to take over Impact as the third best, or the third biggest, I should say, promotion. Best is objective, but biggest is not. Anyway, that's the pre-show, and Willow Nightingale's a star. She's going to be one of the biggest baby faces in all of wrestling in the next couple years. And if Sasha Banks can get that BET show, and she's able to get Willow Nightingale as the number 2 baby face right behind Sasha, or you could have Sasha turn heel on Willow Nightingale. No, everybody would boo. Anybody would get booed if they attacked the lovable Willow Nightingale, and I think Sasha Banks is such a good heel, man. So oh man, I'm already fantasy booking this promotion that's not even existing yet, but man, that would be awesome. So look at all these ROH title matches. We even have the 6-man tag team titles on the line. So Tony Khan was on a press conference yesterday talking all about ROH. He basically said that we didn't get any information yet. That's the biggest news, and I hope we find that out at Death Before Dishonor tomorrow. We don't know what's going to go forward for a weekly television show. Are they going to take over Rampage? Are they going to have a weekly show on YouTube? Are they going to have a different television show on live 2-hour show? We have no clue what we might find out, but I'm really, really looking forward to, and I'm excited. I hope maybe it will be a 2-hour live show on like a streaming service or something like that. Who knows? But that would be amazing. But yeah, we were told that some more matches are going to be announced, but look at what we've already got announced just in all the tag titles for ROH. So in the 6-man tag, I'm not quite as familiar because I did stop watching ROH around the time that AEW formed when everybody left ROH. But Bateman, who I know for years from wrestling, a championship wrestling from Hollywood, which used to be on my TV. That's why I was watching it, because it was actually one of those that I can record on my DVR and watch later. And anyway, the Righteousness are the champions. That's Vincent, who's also in Honor No More and Impact, teaming up with Dutch, the only person in this match I don't really know, against Dalton Castle and boy number 1 and 2, the Boys. So that would be pretty cool if Dalton Castle and the Boys win the titles there. I'm not familiar with the Righteous, but they do have kind of a cool look to them. They look pretty evil and have a good look. This one, I'm really rooting for Serena Deeb. No offense to Mercedes Martinez, but the Professor Serena Deeb is one of the best women's wrestlers in the world right now. She's got some of the best music in all of AEW. They've been building this matchup for over a month now on Dark and Dark Elevation, having Martinez and Deeb team together. So I'm really looking forward to that match. Samoa Joe versus Jay Lethal, another one that they've been building up for over a month now. But Jay Lethal and Satnam Singh and who's the other one? Sanjay Dutt having to do all the work on his own for whatever reason. Samoa Joe, maybe he was injured, has been gone and off TV ever since Double or Nothing when Samoa Joe lost in the finals to Adam Cole for the Owen Hart tournament finals. So Samoa Joe will make his return. Maybe tonight, maybe we'll see Samoa Joe on Rampage tonight. Tonight it'll be Jay Lethal versus the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels. And then tomorrow night, it'll be Samoa Joe defending his ROH television title against the longest reigning TV champion of all time, Jay Lethal. So that'll be another great match. Another one that's been set up for a little while. If you add the fact that both Blackpool Combat Club and Jericho Appreciation Society have been feuding forever, this one's been set up for a long time. So it will be Wheeler Yuta defending in a pure rules match his pure title against Daniel Garcia. That's going to be epic. I don't know who's going to win that one. So all these matches, I really have no idea. I mean, I'm kind of assuming Jay Lethal wins the television title, but even that one's not a for sure thing. So what might end up being the main event, one of the most anticipated rematches of all time, or at least in recent memory, ROH World Tag Team titles on the line, best 2 out of 3 falls, rematch from one of the best matches of all of 2022, FTR, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood versus the Briscoes, Jay Briscoe and Mark Briscoe. That's going to be epic. I hope it's the main event, and it looks like the Briscoes will get signed to ROH, which kind of tells us ROH will not be on either TNT or TBS. ROH will be on maybe a streaming service, YouTube, or a separate channel, because the whole thing with the Briscoes, they have not made any appearances on Dynamite or Rampage to promote this match. We got an amazing, heartfelt, real promo from Dax Harwood talking about his daughter. We've heard Dax talk about his daughter and how he fights for his daughter, and his daughter's his inspiration. But then this week we got a whole story about there was this 5-year-old girl, and she found out she had a hole in her heart, and then the doctors told her it's either surgery or you can fight really hard to try and I don't know what that means. Maybe she had to do rehab or something kind of hard physical labor or something to close the hole herself. But that's just what she did. And Dax ended the interview by saying, I'm going to fight the Briscoes like an 8-year-old girl. And it was a really, like, taken out of context, that's kind of a funny statement. But if you listen to the whole promo, it was 101 how to cut a promo. And really, really good stuff. So anyway, there was also, you can find it on YouTube, since the Briscoes can't appear on TBS or TNT per mandate from their Discovery Time Warner for things the Briscoes have said in the past about the LGBTQ community. And anyway, this match is going to be great, and you can find on YouTube they had a sit down from last week, about 10-minute long sit down interview, but with the Briscoes face to face with FTR, and definitely go watch that. And I'm going to preview this whole event, like I said, on the Rampage review later tonight. So I'll have I'm going to watch Countdown a little bit later today, and basically recap Countdown and add anything that I might add myself, or we might get some more matches announced. But this might also be the main event. I'm not even quite sure which one I'd prefer. I guess I don't really care if FTR versus Briscoes or Jonathan Grisham versus Claudio Castagnoli, formerly known as Cesaro, will fight for the ROH World title. So Cesaro has Claudio Castagnoli has never had a world title in his entire long career, so it would be great for him to win that title here. So it should be a great match. Great technical beast match right there, and great card overall. It sounds like we're going to get a few more matches, even more than this added, and I'm sure it's going to be some shocking, surprising names that we didn't even think might show up. So I'm really looking forward. We should probably see something, maybe a 6-man tag. I'm surprised it's not a 6-man tag for the titles. Maybe they're planning on having that be on like whatever television show they have. But don't forget, the other 3 members of Tully Blanchard Enterprises, along with Jonathan Grisham, are the Gates of Agony, Khan and Taya Leoa, and they've also got Brian Cage with them. So I could see maybe another 6-man tag added to this ROH event, so we can get Tully Blanchard's Enterprises on there. And I would assume they would fight some pretty popular guys, maybe like a Cheeseburger, maybe a Delirious could come back. So we might dip into the past even more. Maybe like people that are injured right now, like a Brian Danielson, and CM Punk might make an appearance. But it would be pretty cool to find out if Danielson's healthy, if he could have a match on here. So endless possibilities where they could go with this ROH show. we could have ROH, like maybe the next pay-per-view, it'll be CM Punk versus Samoa Joe for the television title, which would be amazing callback to their rivalry in the past. And don't forget, Tony Khan now owns all the tape library of the old ROH, so he can show anything he wants as far as, they look what happened 15 years ago. Here it is. And that's what I've heard is going to be on this countdown show that's already up on the YouTube page, countdown for tomorrow's Death Before Dishonor. It looks like it's got a lot of old footage on there, so they can kind of go through the history. So there's so many original ROH guys in AEW. I'm really looking forward to where this whole thing might go from here. And again, it looks like they're going to have their own women's division, so maybe the ROH women's division will get some more time than the actual AEW women's division. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So I would say the top 5 matches of the week were the ones I mentioned from earlier. So it's going to be the top 5 matches. The must-see matches of this week are definitely let me just bring that smaller, and I'll just get rid of it. So definitely your top 5 matches this week are Chris Sabin versus Alex Shelley from last night's Impact. And I would say Okada versus Jeff Cobb from G1. ELP, El Phantasmo versus Will Ospreay from G1. Goto versus Naito from G1. And do I want to put, no, not Goto versus Naito. I would put Tai Chi versus Ishii, as well as Kenta versus Zack Sabre Jr. And I think I might be missing one, but just like last week, last week I could only think of 4, but special shout out to, I should have said in my top 5 of last week, Matt Cross versus ACH. The first time they ever fought against each other was on MLW, which you can find for free on YouTube. So that was last week's MLW. I think it's the most recent one that's up. So definitely go check that out as well. Matt Cross versus ACH. But I'm going to get going. I've got a long night ahead of me. Maybe I'll even find time to get a nap, but I got to go make a little bit of money so I can pay for the roof over my head and stuff. So thanks for tuning in. If you made it this long, it was, I really appreciate you guys. Give me a thumbs up so we can have more people find out the cool community we're trying to build over here, where we like all of wrestling. Not just like one particular thing. So I'll talk to you guys again soon. Tonight it'll be Smackdown live from Boston. I hope it gets hijacked with Sasha Banks chants. We've got Level Up from NXT. We've got Rampage, the go home show. I almost want to call it ROH Rampage, is tonight. And I'll also have an in-depth preview for Death Before Dishonor. And then we've got tomorrow night, Death Before Dishonor. Going to be amazing. I don't think there's any other big events over the weekend other than G1, of course. So I'll be here for all those G1 events as soon as they go. As soon as the event ends live, I'll be here for those reviews. And look out for the backstage comments. In case you don't like reading subtitles, I'll let you know what's going on in all the stories. So I'm going to get going for now. I'll be back later tonight with 4 different things in a row, and it's going to be a long one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again soon. Peace.